In this video I plan to install the gearbox and progress things a little further. One of the things about that is I need to seal up as much of the bottom of the engine as possible because obviously you put oil and such like on the gearbox and it tends to run out unless you've actually got all the bungs and things in place. The first thing I'm going to fit is the oil pressure switch, which goes in underneath in here. It's a taper fit switch that operates at around 7 psi, and I had some fun with this switch some time ago in that as I revved the engine up, the oil light came on brighter. That was counterintuitive, as the oil pressure tends to increase with the increase in revs. What was happening was that this connection, which goes through the switch to ground when there's no oil pressure, was actually bouncing against the frame, and as the revs went up, the vibration went up and you had a longer contact period. So it confused me for a little while, and that's why I now always try and fit the rubber boot that protects this from road and everything. Now again, these engines are mostly UNC and UNF. However, some of the bolts and such like are rather hangovers. So this one needs a 1/4 Whitworth spanner to actually fit the flats. And as I say, it's a tapered thread. Some of the Triumphs used a parallel thread, and then some used a tapered thread, and they're not interchangeable. With the tapered thread, you don't need an O-ring or washer because the taper actually provides the sealant, and it's important to make sure that taper is all the way in. I've actually put a little bit of Loctite 577 thread sealer, and that should hopefully stop any oil leaks, although it's relatively easy to get to redo it if I need. The next part to seal up is the anti-drain valve. This is a ball bearing and a spring and a plug that fits in under where the oil pump is, and can be a little bit fiddly because the ball bearing wants to roll back out again. I have heard people using grease and such like to fit it in. That's not something that I do. There we go. Right. And this is a 7/16. This has a a fibre washer to seal it, and I also put a very small smear of thread sealant on it, and basically the anti-drain valve blocks the oil coming in to the oil pump, which sits here, until the pump has enough suction to overcome that very light spring. I'm now going to fit the oil gearbox oil drain plug with its level, which actually you take this little bolt out, and when the gearbox oil starts running out, you then know that you're actually up to level. That will actually, along with the plug for the gear change plunger, will actually seal up the bottom of the gearbox. One of the other parts that we can fit is the oil pressure relief valve, which actually fits in this hole here, and again this has a fibre washer I remember that, I think it was in the late 1970s, I was on a warship away on deployment, and a lot of these parts, like the oil pressure relief valve, I actually sent off and had chromed, and I bought quite a lot of stainless steel bolts and washers and such like. Mostly I seem to remember from Andy Middleton, I think that was his name, because it was an ongoing once a month purchase. Okay. As part of the assembly process on this at the bottom end of the Trident, I'm actually sealing up all of the areas, and one of the areas of course is the that's a short one. It is the tacho drive. Now I tend to use Allen screws in these positions. That one seems a little long, and have been doing for quite a long time. It makes it easier for the front screw to actually use the Allen key with the ball end, because it can tighten it down relatively easily. That's going all the way down. Right. I have used a thin smear of 3-bond gasket glue on this, and I have renewed the O-ring inside there. Always a juggling act. I have installed the 4-speed gearbox in my Trident engine, and I do it slightly differently to the workshop manual. The workshop manual suggests putting the cam plate all the way into 4th gear, top gear, and then sliding the whole unit in together. I find I need at least 3 hands, probably 4, to achieve that. You obviously keep the rod that the forks slide on out, and then offer up the whole gearbox as one complete chunk with the forks engaged. And then as you slide it in, the inner fork, which is the main shaft fork, is supposed to follow the runway in the cam plate around, and then the gears slide across and allow it to go in. What I tend to find happening is that the fork actually doesn't sit in the cam plate, and then forces the main shaft to the left, and then it doesn't all go together. What I've done in the past, and I've done many of these gearboxes, is to set this such that the ears, the stops, are actually horizontal, and then put the main shaft in, having retained the fork with a little dab of grease so they don't flop back down, and then the fork actually hangs down slightly underneath, and then as you slide it in, you can then bring the fork up and sit into the slot. You can then bring you don't fit the low gear, it gives you more room. You can then bring the lay shaft up again with its fork, which is the one on the outer side, fitted, held in with grease, and you hold that one slightly up and away from the cam plate, and then you can slide that in and then up and engage in the bearing at the back, having make sure, of course, that everything is greased and oiled. You then, using a fine screwdriver or whatever, you can actually slide the shaft in and engage it in the hole at the back, and then finally fit the first gear. Having done that, what I tend to do is to fit the outer, or the inner gearbox cover. And you can do this several times, or you might have to. Gone in far enough, yeah. Lift the lay shaft up a bit, and then it goes in, and then pull it out slightly, and what I then do is actually align the quadrant such that it's halfway across. This one is actually in a different position because I've actually checked the indexing. By applying, you only need one bolt to hold it all together because you don't want it sliding out as you're checking the indexing. You can then use a screwdriver or a lever or whatever to actually change the quadrant, change the gears while turning the main shaft and the gearbox sprocket, such that you can get them into gear. And then obviously you're going to have to take this apart again. So what I've done is get it so that I know that I can get all 4 gears, and I use the outer. I've taken out the kickstart quadrant so that it's easier to fit on and off, and by pulling the lever up and down you can actually make it change gear. I have found that you can actually hold this on, turn the gears and move this. You really want to actually be turning the main shaft and the sprocket while you're actually making these changes. I mean, it will actually change sometimes, but it won't keep going because you obviously need to make the dogs engage and slide in properly. Once you've actually got it such that you're happy with the way that the indexing is working, you can then choose a position, and I have put a little mark across here so that I know that where the quadrant needs to be for this gear, and then I'm going to take it out. What you can do if you're actually having to move the quadrant while trying to find a position is you undo this screw a little bit, and then you can pull out the box, change the position of the quadrant, and then re-engage it. And yeah, that's not quite right. There you go. Such that you can find your position again once you're actually happy. And then the next stage, of course, is to fit the gasket, and I tend to use a little bit of gasket glue on that because you really don't want this leaking. Now, as you pull these out, as you pull this cover out, you'll find some of the parts will actually stay there and some of the parts will actually come out. And there's 3 things you have to be aware of: the lay shaft, main shaft, and the shaft for the there we go, and the shaft for the forks. That's coming out too far. Yeah, there we go. And yeah, they're all there. So one of the things you could do, I haven't done it this time, but having fitted the clutch cover, which is just the 3 screws on the back, you can then fit the clutch hub on its taper with a nut and everything, and that will actually hold the main shaft from coming out. The lay shaft and the fork shaft just have to make sure that they're they're held in there. I have applied a thin smear of 3-bond sealant around the gearbox, both sides of the inner gearbox gasket, and then carefully line this up. The gasket, of course, is held in place. What are we doing? By the inner dowels. There are 2 dowels, one top and one bottom, and having not moved the gearbox, my alignment marks should allow me to there we go. This bearing is new, and sometimes it can be a little bit tight to actually there we go. Allow that to all go together. Now I'm going to put a little drop of anti-seize on each of these inner bolts. Just to stop them seizing into the aluminium. And I have sorted the bolts out so I know what goes where. I have one this side, which is 5/16, and then we have some quarter, all UNC of course. Well, I say of course, some of the threads on this engine are still CEI 26 TPI threads. Now, it's useful to fit the nut underneath here while it's still easily get atable. On the main shaft end of the gearbox, I'm going to fit the clutch hub, and I actually need a little bit of oil around there for the oil seal. And then we need to make sure that we engage the key, which we have. There we go. And then a little bit of Loctite on the nut. The clutch hub is held on a taper with a keyway, and the clutch center nut is done up to 60 foot-pounds. With it in gear, you can actually hold the sprocket and tighten that up relatively easily. So we will do that and then move on from there. While I'm here, we can talk about the clutch basket. This is from a T160. It has the standard 3 mounting points, and then the drain hole at the bottom, and the oil seal at the back of the clutch hub, and the clutch hub itself and everything all fits together. But of course it actually has a hole up here for the starter motor to fit through, and on the other side we'll just have a look at that. So the casting on the T160 is designed to take the starter motor, which sits on the top of here, and this is a more modern starter motor, but it actually is held on with an Allen screw there, Allen screw underneath, and another one that comes in from the back. Basically you then need the correct clutch with the sprocket on the back of the clutch for that to actually work. Prior to fitting the outer gearbox cover, I need to fit the starter mechanism, and you have a washer, and then the kickstart spring, and then the inner, which actually fits inside the spring up against the washer, and then a little bit of oil. You have the outer that it actually runs on, and then not actually and then this part fits on the spline, if I can find it. There we go. And then we have a tap washer that actually fits into there, and then the nut that goes on the end. I'm going to need a spanner for that one. With the gearbox nut done up and the kickstart mechanism free, you'll now find, while there is a very small amount of end play, it all fits together very nicely. The next stage would be to fit the outer gearbox cover, and I shall do that at a later date.